Dan Calore, supervisor of solid waste and recycling for the city. I oversee the operation that currently occurs there with the recycling center, with the leaf composting that occurs in the back. The highway department also is in charge of the salt dome. That is it. One of the goals that we have is to continue with a recycling center up there, probably a more state-of-the-art, if you will, recycling center similar to Katrina Mygan, where you have easier loading capabilities for people who use the services, so the dumpsters are lower than what's currently there. You're not having to climb stairs. We have to be cognizant of our traffic flow. But the other main area, aside from the recycling center, that still will have to occur up there, we did it last year as well, is the leaves that are collected at residences throughout North Stamford, from Bullshead on north, are dropped off here by the city collection center. So instead of those leaves being composted annually now, they will have to be hauled out. So we have a scale there currently, and that will still have to be part of the plan to have a dump site for them to be dropped and then loaded immediately. So this way they get out. There's not going to be any specific areas set aside for composting up there. We also have to be cognizant of storms that occur, Hurricane Sandy and things like that, where we need some space in case something happens. And that's pretty much my operation that occurs there. Also, the salt dome is currently not planning on, it's needed in that area because of all the salt requirements in North Stamford, so there will have to be a salt dome up there, which will also require truck access and the loading and the disposing of the salt that occurs. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Erin McKenna. I work for the City of Stamford Land Use Bureau, and I'm going to very briefly describe how we chose the consultant team that will be doing this project. The city has very specific protocols for choosing consultants. It starts with a formal request for proposals, in which you describe the scope of work and the time frame for the project, etc. And then that is posted on our city purchasing website. And then qualified consultants respond and providing copies for the review committee. In this case, typically one person from each department involved reviews the proposals. In this case, the acting superintendent of parks, which is Lori Albano, is one of the reviewers, city engineer Lou Casolo, the superintendent of solid waste Dan Calore, who we just heard from, parks maintenance, purchasing, and then land use, me. The 7 consultant teams that responded, we shortlisted that to 4 teams of consultants, and we interviewed 4. And the consultants are teams of consultants because this project is very complicated and requires a broad array of professional services. You need somebody who understands landfill dynamics and engineering, somebody who understands how to design a recycling facility, someone who knows how to design a park. And we selected Eris Land Studio as the lead consultant, and he is working with Ty & Bond, which is an engineering firm, and also with Preview Landscape Architects. The whole process for selecting a consultant takes about, well, in this case took 6 months, started in April, and got a contract signed in September. So that's the process. And now Eris Stalis, who is the principal of Eris, company.
Thank you. Thank you, Erin. A little bit, as Erin said, I'm Eris Stalis, the principal of Eris Land Studio. We're a landscape architecture firm, and we're supported by Preview Landscape Architects. The principal is here tonight, Stuart Sachs. Stuart will be leading the public engagement aspect, really getting information from you and doing that effectively. And Dana Huff is here from Ty & Bond. Ty & Bond brings a tremendous amount of landfill experience. The traffic engineering will be doing traffic studies as well as recycling centers. And then also Carl Stopper with TRC. They were retained previously, and they're the engineers that prepared the closure plan. And we see all the city staff who Aaron mentioned, but also Ernie Orgera, who's the director of operations. So these are all the people that are working it, plus the people we have in our offices. This is briefly what we're going to be doing tonight. So the first part, we're here to just kind of talk about what is it that we have and to give you some ideas. We know we had previous public meetings, but we're really like kind of, okay, let's just make sure we cover all the bases of what's kind of necessary and some thoughts on what's possible here. And then Stuart's going to start talking with you about kind of what's going to drive our decision-making process, because there's so many things that we could do here, and what we want to do is do it in a way that satisfies as many people as possible. There's always going to be something that we can't do, because we can't do everything, but it's a relatively small site, and we'll try to get the most bang for our buck here. Our agenda really talking about history, what are going to be some of the needs of the city, what are some of the pros and cons of a site. A landfill poses certain challenges that we really need to be careful of, that we don't trap ourselves in the future. And then kind of talking about some ideas, what can inspire us, and then drawing from you some of your thoughts. The goal tonight is not to know if this is what we're going to have at the park, but it's just to get those ideas of what you really want. We're going to have follow-ups with surveys on with using SurveyMonkey. We already have a Facebook page up. We have a web page up, Scofieldtownpark.org. We've already gotten a comment on the Facebook page, so the goal is to make it as open as possible. It's not just listening to you here tonight, but a lot of times there's neighbors there, they work late, then they have to come home and, do homework with the kids. They'd love to be here, but how do you juggle that all? So we're trying to listen to as many people as possible. So it's not about, this won't be the end design. It's, okay, what can we possibly do here? The next meeting we'll get into kind of what might be a finished product. The public process. This is really a process that's about listening to all of you. I mean, the public process, can you try to fix that? The public process is about listening to what people have said. It's listening to the stakeholders, the Smith House, Schofield Manor, the middle school here. They're immediately in this area, and they could have a huge impact on the site, as well as the Bartlett Arboretum, the Science Museum. These are things that are part of this community, which, in addition to you as the residents, there are people that live here too, and they contribute to your community. So how can we kind of work all together so everybody's kind of building off of each other and kind of helps to strengthen that community? What was I going to say next? I'm sorry, I didn't memorize that presentation. But the project timeline, where we're at, is, this kind of gives a quick overview. If we go back to 1934, nothing was really here. And then people kind of started using it as a, drop stuff off and a dump. But that actually, when I looked at the records, it was actually closed in 68 or 69, which is, when we first looked at it, I thought it wouldn't be as long. But we'll speed forward to 2009, when the EPA issued its notice about needing to have a closure plan. So even though we know you had a 1997 master planning process and things never work fast enough in the government, that I think everybody knows, but it actually hasn't been that long a time that we've been looking at the closure. Now we're getting to this process of actually seeing those dirt piles disappear and seeing something that's actually, I can breathe once I see that. So we really see that this closure to be actually the work just for the closure itself to be completed in 2014. Now that doesn't mean the site amenities, if we say, just for sake of discussion, ballpark or playground, but at least the closure's done and your pile of dirt is gone. Okay, this is the site as it is today. And I'm just going through this kind of, so we kind of, you know, just review everything. Our leaf composting, everybody knows the windrows that are there. And that was an important piece, especially in the storms we had in the last 2 years. All that debris that came from this part of town got brought here quickly, and this whole place was completely filled. We know the salt shed is an important piece for, you know, the winter and the salt. We're talking about 4,000 cubic yards of material approximately. If I'm blocking people, I apologize. The recycling area, we have the park area, which was closed a few years ago, you know, the ponds, and then everything else in essence is kind of vegetated, wooded slopes. I mean, you guys know the neighborhood. Oh. Some of the things we want to mention to you, there's going to be a few words flying around. A closure plan, you'll see an end-use plan, and site design. So what does that mean? A closure plan really is that technical document that takes that landfill and basically covers it with a membrane and soil so that we're creating strong separation between, you know, any stormwater that's falling and then the landfill itself. So in essence, that's the capping. That's the technical part that TRC and Carl Stopper are doing. Then the end-use plan is kind of, that's what we're doing. We're developing this plan that's a kind of, what do we kind of want here? It's not, they're not specific details, but it's kind of, I'd love to see, you know, the climbing equipment or fields like that. And then the site design, that is actually gets to this functional piece. Like, how do I get from recycling onto the street so that we don't have conflicts? Because especially during the leaf season, we have like 100 trucks or so a day that come in here. And if we have recycling, it's either open or it's closed. You know, it's open with, and we avoid those conflicts, or it's just closed completely during that leaf season. Arrow. Some of the things that Dan mentioned is the city needs. We know we have to maintain that salt shed and, you know, just that area so that the trucks can come in. We're talking about queuing potentially of like 20 trucks at a time, and then as they're going to be coming through here through the night, we have to have that salt shed. The recycling facility, there's a lot of recycling that happens. It's a great service, and they move probably 3 dumpsters a week out of there a week of that are general recycled metals and things like that. Electronic recycling, the paper shredding, these are all things that people are using. These are things that have to remain. The receiving and then the processing of the leaves, which today as it stands, what the city's going to be doing is they're going to bring in the leaves, and then a commercial vendor will come in, pick those up and leave. So we have to make sure we have enough space for that, which, you know, as we work the plan, we're going to define, is it 2 acres or 4 acres when we're actually putting pencil to paper to make sure we don't have conflicts, but those are things we have to have. Other things, you know, we mentioned the recycling, but we also have to think about at times storm debris. There are going to be other storms. I hate to say it, if you didn't get the pruning done this year, nature might do it for you. But we got storm debris, and then there's needs for open space. Just keeping that natural space, you know, natural open space. Then also we hear of needs from the city that we need recreational fields. We need more space. And I don't think there's a community anywhere that says they don't have, you know, they have enough fields. But that's something we always hear. There are going to be impacts to this closure. And, you know, when I talk about the impacts, I mean, what happens with a landfill when you're trying to build on it? And I'd like to have Dana come up and talk a little bit about Time Bond's experience in landfills and what they've seen in landfills, you know, when you build a golf course or whatever on it, some of the challenges.
Thank you, Harris. Time Bond was brought on, Dana Huff with Time Bond. We were brought on to make sure that whatever end use occurs here dovetails in with what TRC who's the city's consultant to do landfill closure, to make sure the two will mesh. And some of the issues that we have to think about are settlement. They're required, the city's required in the closure to have a certain grade on the closure materials, and if that's not conducive to, let's say, a ballpark or whatever we decide to put up there, then extra fill has to go on. Well, if extra fill has to go on top of that cap, that is extra weight. We got to make sure that whatever we put on top, we avoid settlement long term. Say it's a turf field, for instance, or a synthetic field. Just again for discussion purposes, we're going to make sure that the maintenance of that is minimal with a settlement. So that is a very big concern that we have. Stormwater separation. We want to make sure that we keep whatever stormwater flows off from that in the right direction. And we've got to make sure that the grading will allow that to happen and it meets regulations, plus it provides the necessary pathways or whatever for your end uses. Vehicle circulation. As Eris mentioned, we're going to be doing the transfer station with Dan and the city. We're not involved in the salt shed, but that will be part of the traffic circulation. Currently, you have leaf trucks that will mix with vehicles coming in to use the transfer station. The idea is once we know what the end use is, what the types of recyclables are, quantities of recyclables, then we can separate the, let's say, the pedestrian vehicles from the commercial vehicles, and that's a very important thing for just for flow of traffic. So we've been brought on board just kind of as checks and balances for a number of these issues. And we're here tonight to, to listen to what you have to say and hopefully build on what Eris has.
Thank you, Dana. As Dana said, they're kind of a checks and balances because as landscape architects, we like to come in and say, oh, let's do all these great things and it'll be really cool and fun. And then they'll say, this is what's going to happen there. And so we start pushing them. See, our job is kind of push the engineers to be something really cool. And then their job is to kind of push back and go, okay, get back to earth a little bit. So we want to dream to have something really great, but something that's really feasible and buildable. This is a picture of our, just broad brush what the landfill, closure plan is today. It's based on the plan prepared by TRC, the grading, slopes can't be more than 3 to 1. 3 to 1 is not that bad, but any steeper and there's problems with stability. The base of the landfill in terms of if you just walked away and did nothing else has to be at least 4%. Now that doesn't mean we can't build on top of that to make some things level, but those are kind of our baseline elements that we're starting to work with. Some of the things we know that we have to keep is we know, again, the salt shed stays. That's an operation that as we go forward after tonight, taking your ideas and developing design concepts, that's an element that's staying. Recycling and kind of dropping off the leaves. That's just a broad bubble, brush stroke. We know that's staying. That has to stay. We have to treat water somehow, because we have a stream coming across the street here, and there's water that's going to be flowing through the site. So what happens with this water feature? It also collects any storm water from the rest of the site. What is that? Is it a dry pond and then it goes away, or is it a wet pond, or what? Water as it is can be anything, but we have to kind of figure out how we're going to treat it. And then the rest of this kind of ends up being, what do you want with the site? There already is definitely going to be an access road here at the top, which is going to be gravel. We're already seeing that as an opportunity just for a walking trail. Kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So this gives us that picture, understanding that this is all going to be basically all brand new. This starts kind of giving us an idea of where we are. I talked earlier about other stakeholders in the area. And this plan, what it represents is, each of these lines is a 1/4 mile. We use that 1/4 mile in planning because that's what basically takes you about 5 minutes to walk. And we're like, well, so what's it about a walkable, area? What can we get done here? You have the Scofield Manor here, Smith House, the middle school, Bartlett Arboretum. Even during the week, I saw people stopping off at the school at the end of the day, taking their dogs for a walk through the Arboretum. You have the the old cemetery that then Mayor Malloy dedicated to the Potter's Field. That was the Poppers Field there, and that's, it's just, part of the cultural history of the area. So this is a great area. You have the Archdiocese Cemetery right here. So this is a nice small area. You've got all the active trails today that are in at the Smith House. Now, granted, they're not maintained well, but you see there's already a pretty significant trail system in this area. We know, walking on this road's a nightmare. Right? We heard that on previous public meetings. It's a nightmare. So those are things we're listening to. As I mentioned, we heard some of your past public meetings. We know you had a meeting back in March 2012. Some of the things you had: diversity of ages, a dog park, fitness stations, tennis courts, basketball courts, areas for sunning. People, they love their leaf composting. That's one thing I've heard about this area. They love leaf composting. They want it somehow to be part of this neighborhood. We definitely heard you don't want Scalzi Park. It's not going to be Scalzi Park, but you want something that's connected to the uses. You even heard cell phone towers. I know, service is terrible here, but those are things we heard from you guys. And so as we move forward, we want to build on this. Our approach, as we met with the city, interviewed, we talked about, well, how are we going to, approach this project, and what are our ideas, just kind of on a, if we're at a 10,000-foot level. A lot of it's talking about education. How can we make this an educational site? Because part of our philosophy in our firm is if we drop that little pebble in the pond and can somehow spread that idea out, we don't know where it's going to lead, but it's kind of building that better education, better awareness. What a better place you have than a recycling center. Talking about gardening, you have the garden features around here. Looking at it as a gateway. This almost, when you come off of 137, you're coming through here, it's almost like another gateway into this area. And that's how we see part of the site. And really trying to find a balance between that built environment and the natural environment. Now I want to start talking about inspiration. What are we thinking when we're thinking of a park? Most of the time people, if you grew up in New York City, say in the Bronx, your thought of a park is probably some asphalt, a basketball court, softball, climbing equipment, and a chain link fence. You grow up, in the Adirondacks, your idea of a park is the Adirondack parks, woods and natural streams of woods. So there's all kinds of ideas of parks that there are. What we want to do is kind of think about something that's going to be serving children through the ages, from a toddler to when you're growing up. Spending time with your parents, your grandparents, things like that. For the adults, when they're like, I need a place to unwind. I got to get out. I got to go for a walk. I need to clear my head. Let me just reconnect with nature. Because we know reconnecting with nature lowers your stress, makes you healthier, lowers doctor bills, and it's better for students in terms of education. This can strengthen your community. It can become like, wow, this is our park. This is a neat piece of Stamford. We're so proud of it. And the schools, again, schools and parks are a great resource. All of you probably have memories as children went on some field trip someplace that was, fishing for salamanders or something, and that probably stuck in your mind. It wasn't at the school, but it was a resource the schools could use. We want something that's interactive. Something that, it's not just static, you walk in, but that's it, it's there. But something, it touches all of your senses, not just sight, but sound, smell, all those things. And technology, we could capitalize on technology, and even in getting the public input, we want to build on that technology so that it kind of gives us more opportunities. When I talk about sensory, just the smell of lavender. If you take lavender, like I had some in my pocket from the interview actually, you put it on, it's like, it's a positive smell. Little things like that. And it doesn't take much to change that. This is one of Dana's projects. Maybe you go, you know what? We don't need a park. Turn it into a solar farm. Let it start bringing revenue into Stamford. That's something that's been done more and more. And just solar power. It's a farm. You got great southern orientation. Put a bunch of panels up there. It may be what you want, maybe not. But again, it's something to think about, to throw out there. But maybe what you do, instead of turning it into a farm, now you suddenly start having panels that's become art in the landscape. It's not the whole thing, but they're contributing to it. You know, maybe there's features in the park that helps power things, or maybe helping offset some of the other costs for electricity around here. So you don't want a farm, maybe I want some solar that's really cool and artistic, something, not just a square block on a hill. Stormwater, one of the things we love as landscape architects and engineers, we're always harping on stormwater now. You've all heard it about LID and how do we minimize it. One of the biggest pollutant sources today is non-point source pollution. So people put on their fertilizer and they don't realize how it runs off into the storms. So part of our goal as designers sometimes is, one, to create facilities that, you know, treat that stormwater better, actually bring it out so you're seeing it, and then have it become something that's also an educational tool. Because I promise you, we are going to, the world knows we're going to have issues with water. So we all have to start kind of learning to nurture it and take care of our stormwater. And I keep talking about bees just because that Jeff Brown is, you know, he does that as a hobby. And that's one of our things, you know, if students understand the importance of bees and how important they are to agriculture, it's just something they may think about, you know what, I might go into that field to study, you know, the effects of pesticides or whatever, because that, if you lose your bees, agriculture collapses. And again, stormwater could be anything. Maybe we think about like Villa d'Este in Italy, which is these grand fountains, instead of thinking just a simple pond, or something like just a simple, you know, water flowing down a stair. You know, there's nothing like walking in a spring rain and kind of watching water flow. It starts adding sound. So there's a lot of things we could be doing with it. Even, you know, maybe we have pumps that run off of solar power. You know, sculptures, you know, sandboxes, the kids come play in. The image on the lower right side, it just, we took a playground area, put some bluestone up so kids come in and just scribble on it. Now, it's a easy, natural chalkboard. What park is that? Story. Yeah, PepsiCo. You know, maybe it suddenly becomes a sculpture park. And maybe it's permanent sculptures, maybe it's rotating, but something to start creating, you know, images that you come through and it just brings people through, and suddenly Stanford starts becoming this art center. And it's, you know, cool art, maybe it's modern art. Could be a storm came, you got these monsters, something very abstract. Or maybe you come in with something that's a little more traditional. You know, Washington Square Park, you know, that art's beautiful piece of art. It's very urban, but maybe you go with traditional art. And, you know, sunbathing. Sunbathing can happen in all kinds of manners, so it doesn't have to be an ugly pool with an ugly deck around it. Just a relaxing space for people to say, let me just get away, or create unique opportunities just for lounging. Or maybe it's willow structures that create tunnels and spaces for children. It's natural, gets them involved in it, and that's going to kind of change with the landscape as well. So it's kind of taking that playground theme and that garden theme, and now we're trying to create sculpture with the living landscape. And it's about transforming spaces. We take one thing that used to be a parking lot, and now that Stepping Stones Museum for children, we turn it into an herb garden, a sensory garden, you know, with solar sculptures. So now they can still park at the site, but now it's a place for children to go, for the workers to kind of decompress. So it's about taking and transforming. That's what we'll be doing. Maybe disc golf. You know, we didn't hear it, but it's amazing how disc golf is growing in the communities. Biking. Maybe you want a little BMX track, you know. Might not be big, maybe it's the whole site, maybe it's a small part, but a place to go and let kids start riding on the dirt. Community gardens. I know people have sometimes complained about the fencing, but it keeps community gardens keep growing and growing and growing. That's what kind of helped the U.S. in World War I when they called them victory gardens. You know, people, you know, how did they survive? They called them victory gardens. But it's just a natural extension, so something that we might be able to do here. And the things that we do can be small. It doesn't have to be these huge ideas that are, like I said, build a desk safe, something. Just simple little things like birdhouses to bring bluebirds back into the area. Because bluebirds love open grass areas, and when you see them zipping around there, it just means it's a healthy habitat, and you see them coming back. So sometimes it's just small ideas. So again, this is our palette that we're kind of starting with, and because tonight what we're doing is just kind of pulling your ideas out. We don't want you to hold back and say, oh, maybe not. Just throw the ideas out here and throw them at Stuart, because now Stuart's going to come up and drive this. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stuart Sachs with Preview Landscape Architects. Do all of you have a copy of the misspelled agenda? Uh-oh, there's more than one English teacher in here. Okay, I made a mistake. We're going to start on page 2. This is really old school. When you're in a school, you look at pieces of paper the teacher hands out. Well, we're going to primarily use pages 2, 3, and 4 in the discussion leading up to your contribution of your ideas for a list, and we'll take some sort of general idea on voting on it. Page 2 is a blank sheet, and if you look at that as a place where we can start putting down ideas representing the things that you want, that's our start. On page 3, if you just scan down the items there, those are suggestions of things that you would say that you want. I'm going to have you raise your hand. I'm going to call on you, and we'll hear what they are, and we'll start putting them in our list. 15, 20 years ago, we used to take little pieces of paper and I'd put them in a pile and go home with them. Now we're going to put them into the computer tonight, and they will be up on SurveyMonkey on the website for Scofieldtown Park. And you'll be able to vote eventually individually with a separate ranking. Tonight we're going to do the words that describe what you want. We're going to take a very simple poll of raising your hands to say, is this a high use, is it a low use, is it an unimportant but still on the list sort of use? We'll get to that. But you see on page 3, there are a whole bunch of ideas from child-friendly, aesthetically pleasing, passive recreation, active recreation, senior access, pedestrian-friendly, bicycles, diverse ecology. Those are just ideas that I typed in there. On page 4, if you look at it, we are going to do something very similar. We're going to take that list that you give me individually, and then we're going to vote on it by giving me a show of hands. So if you look at item number 6, someone gave me, or I did actually, but gave me an example of the fact that you want the park to be complementary to the area. And then I'm going to ask you for a raise, show your hands, give me a raise your hand of how many you think it's important. And this is not a science-based survey. This is not a mathematics. This is just a windshield sort of view so we can get an idea tonight. You will eventually go online, and I'll explain that in a minute. And we're going to give a numerical value. But tonight it says raise your hand. I thought complementary to the area had a low value.
Could we define complementary to the area?
You are going to give me the words. This is only my list. If you want to say complement to the area, that's one of the things. Raise your hand, we'll put it on the list, and then everyone will vote on it. So
I think it means that it fits in with the surrounding, no big buildings, no noise. But other people may think complementary means something else.
That's okay, that's gonna happen with all the words.
Yeah, well, then,
We don't have an ability really to spend hours on, well, what do they call it, bipolar semantic differentiation. We just want to get general ideas of words. If you think it should say something else, then I think if you give that term, we'll put it on a list, and then we'll ask for a vote on it.
okay.
Question, we see these wonderful things you can do with this, but the bottom line is the city wants a recycling center, room for 25 trucks to line up, with salt, it needs place to dump the leaves, and room for debris. How much space is left for what we're talking about?
Well,
Because the ideas that we put forth may depend on exactly what we have left. I mean, it's unclear, that sounds like a lot of room to sit on.
I don't know that there is a quantitative answer, and I know what I'm asking you tonight is not a quantitative answer. But if we don't have opposing ideas to balance out, we don't have an answer. It's just one-sided. If you asked me what I wanted in that park, I'd be done. I wouldn't need to talk to you. I wouldn't need to talk to you. If I'm getting paid from the city, that's the only people. But they understand the constituency concern about getting a balanced approach. I don't have an answer for you right now. I don't know the total they want. I don't know what the total is that everyone else is going to want. Hold up. I'm not taking questions right now, and I want to explain the survey. We're not getting into a question and answer period. That'll come after this, okay?
Stuart, just, if, one of the, so you understand kind of what our area is. The whole park is about 15 acres. Yeah, plus or minus 17. 17 acres. So if we look at this as 17 acres, you're probably looking at about 4 or 5 acres, you know, for the city services, you know, plus or minus. Don't commit me to that because we haven't put pencil to paper yet, but that's about what we're looking at. Take away 2-3 acres for slopes and things like that. So what do we end up with? 8 acres maybe, you know, roughly. You know, if people want a lot of water, a big water feature, suddenly that shrinks. If you want to get rid of the water and things like that, you get a bigger area. So just as you're thinking from a scale perspective, you know, say 6 to 8 acres, and for, you know, a soccer field is about 2 acres in size. So you kind of get an idea of scale.
All right.
Question?
Can I hold off on the questions? What I want to get from you at this point of the presentation are some ideas about what you would like to see in the park. I'm looking for adjectives, I'm looking for parenthetical expressions, I'm not looking for sentences nor paragraphs nor questions.
Stuart? Are you looking for nouns?
Looking for verbs?
I have some ideas.
Okay, you're the first person. If you'd like to give us the first, we have a volunteer who's going to give us the first element to be put in the list. What is
She
it?
gets a prize, though.
First element. Well, I mean, I came up with a bunch. Can I just rattle them off?
Could you give us one, please? You can raise your hand, because lots of people are already raising their hand.
Pick your number 1.
Well, it's been already said tennis court.
Speak up, please.
Ice skating rink, covered
Okay.
picnic area.
Okay,
vending
we'll put
machines,
down,
generate revenue.
we can put down ice skating rink. We'll come back, let's have a green shirt, please.
Bike Skills Park.
And what?
Bike Skills Park.
Bike Skills Park. Yes, sir, the purple.
Walking trail.
Walking trails.
Football field for the middle school.
Football field for the middle school. Start
Snack bar.
a snack bar. White sweater.
Tennis court.
Tennis courts. Brown, purple, excuse me.
Restaurant.
Restrooms.
I gotta ask.
Hold on.
Pet cemetery.
Pet cemetery. Way in the back with a white piece of paper in your hand.
Just to touch on the football field, instead of multi-sport field, they could use football, lacrosse, soccer, All a multi.
A multi-use field,
Yes.
okay?
What's the budget for maintenance on the park?
We're looking for something else right now, certainly. Yes, please.
Incorporate glacial remnants, giant rocks that are on, rock rimming, the rocks, the giant rocks around the side of the road, somehow incorporate them.
I couldn't hear what you're saying.
Incorporate glacial remnants.
Thank you. Does the ugly chain link fence have to stay?
Glacial remnants. Those are the big rocks that are on the edge. Stand out. The front row? Tennis courts?
It's already on there. An aesthetically pleasing entrance. That's it.
An aesthetically pleasing entrance. I presume exit too.
Stone wall perimeter?
A composting service. And that's to deposit and pick up. D/O, comma, P/U. That's drop off and pick up.
Energy efficient lighted walking trails.
Energy
Efficient lighted walking trails.
Lighted walking.
lighted walking trails. Okay.
Stone wall perimeter instead of chain link?
A stone wall perimeter.
Trees.
How about a playground?
Playground. Are you, when you say playground, are you thinking like mechanical playscape things like they climb on?
I'm thinking like Chestnut Farm.
Parking.
Parking.
You have it on there multi-use, can we change that to multi-use, like field or something along those
I
lines?
think that's what we're, yes. Multi-use is multi-use. Multi-use athletic? Okay. Okay, over here.
Weather station.
A weather station, okay?
Wall. Lots of history. South.
No, I was thinking.
A running track and baseball field. Way in the back of the clock.
Prohibition against lighting, no lighting, no
A
lighting.
prohibition of lighting, no lighting.
An area for entertainment, like to have concerts in the summer, not big concerts, like, for kids to have musical concerts.
A
I
amphitheater,
didn't mean an amphitheater.
a performance area,
But an area where you can have
entertainment,
Outdoor concert area.
outdoor.
Covered picnic area.
Covered picnic area.
No, she's got three. I'm gonna say something. Still going.
All right, sorry, you don't hear me enough.
Dog access. Dog access park.
A bark park, dog park sort of thing?
Is dog access the same as
Dog
dog?
access.
Not increase taxes.
Not increase taxes. Vending machines?
I'd like to see a response to the inputs that the neighborhood has given at least 3 times over the last 15 years as to what should be in this redesign result. I'd like to see a response to the requests from the neighborhood for what should be in this park that's taken place over the last 15 years.
Is there
You want me to put it?
is there a published list of that?
We have the master plan from 1997.
There's the master plan from 1997. There's the Parks Commission plan from the previous period to that. There is the plan that Mr. Solo talked about when the park was closed. So in this building there must have been at least or the previous building, the Yukon building, there must have been at least 3 or 4 public meetings on what the neighbourhood would like to see in this park. So I'd like to hear see a response on your list for the previous request.
I think 26 is going to listen to us, and I know that we will collect those documents. That's part of the material I know has been given to us.
We do have that. I mean, that is part of what we're looking at. We know that the public spent a huge amount of time developing that master plan, but now we see that the landfill aspect does throw a bit of a curveball on it. So we want to make sure that when we swing for this part, that we don't miss it. So that's why we're doing this. As much as I know it's frustrating, you sit and you contribute. You contribute, say, when are you going to just build it? We did enough work. I hear your frustration, but with the curveball thrown now, we just don't want, we want to hit it out of the park.
My frustration is the people that gave you the input, about half of them have died off because it's taken so long to connect this. Unfortunately, I'm one of the people who was around at the start, and I'm getting a little older every day. And I'm tired of hearing consultants, different ones each time, come up and say, here's what this wonderful park's going to be. Let me hear what you want to add. And here you are starting all over again, putting motherhood words on a chart and saying we're going to vote on it on the end of it.
Thank you. Okay. In the back with the white shirt and tie.
Safe, police, clean, and maintained.
Safe, policed,
Not a place where people are going to hang out at night and drink.
maintained.
And something that, any structure that you put up in 5 years doesn't look like it's falling apart.
Walking paths and bike trails. Along the roadway. Even. Okay. Bike and pedestrian safety along Rock Rimmon. The English teacher, please. Well, okay, there's a question about whether or not the athletic fields are a good idea or not. That's a topic that has been given us. I think the consensus vote will say whether it's a low desirability or a high desirability. But we have to acknowledge each person's desire to see whatever it is they hear. You have one more word. Benches with backs.
Yes, I would like to piggyback off of someone's idea, because if they wanted to add, if you could incorporate trees and plantings around there, not just have like a,
More natural planting, more naturalistic form.
I'm thinking like Waverly Park has many different paths through it, and obviously we don't have that much space. But it's inviting for people who want to walk or jog or bike or whatever.
The natural, I think that's inherent to a good design. Thank you.
What about like a little pitch and putt area, like a putting green, like a sand trap?
A golf pitching putting area?
Yeah.
Right. We'll let you out there in the middle of that multi-use field during practice. In front here.
I think we need to keep in mind that we already have some of these features adjacent. And so like the weather station, great idea, except we got one at the zoo.
Okay. This
So
is,
we don't want to do one.
you guys know that better than we do. And that's what I'm going to talk about in about 2 seconds when I say we're going to vote on some of these. So we're going to get an idea about who knows what, as opposed to just putting anything down.
You mentioned earlier like a sunbathing area, but it'd be nice with all this water you're talking about, like a cool off sprinkler, because I'm sure we're not going to have swimming in there.
A splash pad.
Yeah.
Okay.
signage and linkage from the nature center to Bartlett Arboretum and incorporating this park as a trifecta of all the parks that surround it.
Okay. Eric, you have a sign? Who's ladies in the back?
How secure is the cap with some of these things? How secure is the cap for some of your projects?
I think the cap is so secure that he's not worried about losing his insurance. It's an EPA standard of practice. It's not just a whimsical sort of thing he's going to do. If we propose things for the park, he's going to tell us it'll be maintained. Okay. 2 or 3 more things?
Bird sanctuary?
Bird sanctuary, birding, bird watching.
Most important for this park than anything else is changing the perception of what it has been since 1934, and that is a dump. That's the biggest issue that your firm needs to change, help change aesthetically and idealistically for this area, because we've lived with this for too long, for too many decades.
Thank you.
I think maybe all the money should go up to fencing and trees behind it. Make it beautiful as you go by. Get rid of the, use that to dump, make it pay for itself.
Fencing and trees, thank you.
I would take the comment about signage and linkage to the area to go back to what you originally said about complementary to the environment here.
Complementary to the area, right.
Bring in the
Exactly.
closure, the entrance, the signage, the fact that there are athletic fields in the school, the fact that there's the arboretum and walking trails. It should be seen as part of a whole and representative of the diversity of the environment.
Thank you. Blue shirt.
Since you're keeping the salt dome, should you make it an aesthetic barn that belongs up in North Stamford instead of a big pointed spaceship?
An aesthetic treatment of salt dome.
Put solar panels on there.
Aesthetic treatment of salt dome. All right, I think we'll have 1, 2, 3 more. 4 more. Way in the back.
Safer street crossing to the middle school and the house walking paths.
Linkage to the schools and neighborhood.